I'm Autumn Brown, a queer science fiction writer, a theologian, a mother of dragons, and a healing justice facilitator for social movements living in rural Minnesota.
And I'm Adrienne Marie Brown, author of Emergent Strategy, co-editor of Octavia's Brood, writer, facilitator of Black liberation work, auntie extraordinaire, doula, and pleasure activist living in Detroit.
And this is How to Survive the End of the World.
And right now, we're listening to an original song from the Parable of the Sower Opera. We cannot believe it. We're super excited. The opera is so amazing.
What you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do? When the world on fire? What you gonna do? What you gonna do?
This is amazing.
The opera is masterminded by Toshi Reagon, a hero of ours, who was born into a movement and movement song family, the daughter of Bernice Johnson Reagon of Sweet Honey in the Rock. They spent their entire lives singing and fighting for justice. And now Toshi has been making her own music for decades, and we are super excited to talk with her today about this new project, well, old project. You'll hear about it, The Parable of the Sower Opera.
Nowhere to run, 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 nowhere when the world on fire. Nowhere to run, 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 nowhere to run. Oh, you can't hide, you can't hide. You can't hide when the world on fire. You can't hide. You can't hide. You can't hide. What you gonna do? 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 When the world on fire. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do?
We are here today for a very, very special edition of How to Survive the End of the World. And to kind of put us in the right frame of mind, I want to read these words from Octavia, because I think this is what we're up to, and this is what this whole episode is going to be about. So it goes like this. A gathering of earthseed is a good and necessary thing. It vents emotion, then quiets the mind. It focuses attention, strengthens purpose, and unifies people. And we are here today, Autumn and I are joined today by basically one of the great spreaders of earthseed, Toshi Reagon. Yay! We're so excited that you're here. So, fireworks are going off, sparklers are
coming
off.
out of our fingertips.
Glitter, there's Uloi clapping. So, Toshi, it is a huge honor for us that you are joining us for this podcast, which is really done in a sort of love note to Octavia. And we both feel a lot of love for you. And right now we're recording this in the heart of your New York premiere of the opera. Is that right?
Yeah, we're right in the middle of it.
The first time I learned of your work, I became a fan of you just as a singer in your own right, like outside of your mom, outside of the parables, outside of anything else. And so I'd love if you want to share with people a little bit about like what were you doing before this project became such a core project of your life? Like as a musician, as an artist, kind of what led you to being like, I think an opera is something I need to do with my life?
I've always done multiple things. I mean, I've never been, it just needs to be music, you know. My mom raised me to be a producer. Like when I was 13, it was like, I want to be a singer. My mom's like, learn how to be a producer and stay
Ooh.
away from drugs. Because she was like, you won't have to wait for somebody to tell you what you want to do is viable, and wait for people to produce you. And she said, if you get too involved with drugs, it will be the most important thing in your life, and your work will be secondary. Um, and so she also told me that I would have no failures as long as I did my art. And she told me that when I was young. And she told me this other thing that was really important, which was no one could measure the value of my work. It was not measurable by any vision of a human. Like it just wasn't possible. So that I just needed to do it and not worry. So those things really made me have a wide idea about what my possibilities were. And right away, I interned with a women's production company called Roadwork in DC, and they booked women artists, and they produced concerts. And I was from 14 to 16, a geeky kid that was running around and doing errands. And then when I was 17, I produced my first concert, and I started producing my records, and I met June Millington, who basically would send me little cassettes of all of the producing and songwriting she was doing so I could learn. And later on, when I got a big fat record deal, I met Nona Hendrix, who took me under her wing to this day, is like another mom. So I've always felt like I could do anything, and I didn't have to do what other people were doing. I didn't have to fit. And then, let's face it, I didn't fit in any box that existed when I first was working. There was not your big bald-headed black dyke box for music. And
there's no box with that label on it.
No, I mean,
still not really.
It's a thrill right now. Like I just see so many people, who it's amazing what the music world is now. And you see so many people who just refuse straight out. Like they just don't even try it. They're just like, I'm not even going to try to fit in this category. So I don't know. I just been really blessed and really lucky to have community and my mom. And so I've played, multiple instruments. I produce myself. Recording wise, I produce other people. I have a festival. I wake up in the morning and usually write a song no matter what's going on. I'm really
That's a great daily practice.
Yeah, it is. They just jump me and say we need to be written. I just do a whole bunch of things, and of course, I love being on stage and singing in a room full of people. Probably the most.
That's beautiful. That's incredible. I mean, you have an incredible life, and just a lot of love in it. So inside of this, so you have this incredible life. You know that you can do anything you want to set your mind to. You know that you can work as a producer, that you're putting on shows, you're putting on concerts. And then at a certain point, you and your mother, sat down and said, we're going to do the Parables. Can you tell us a little bit about what was the journey of the actual Parables opera from the inception of that idea to reaching out to Octavia to actually beginning to do something?
And why did it need to be an opera?
We sing everything. So that's the number one reason why it had to be an opera. We sing everything, and we're not very good, or at least I'm not very good at writing dialogue and have people stand on the stage and talk to each other. I'm amazed by people who can do that. But, I can create, a way to do it through singing text. And we also, my mother had all of her work has always been like this. Like before, when we came to DC, she was a music director for DC Black Repertory Company. Okay. And she had two pieces. One was called Upon This Rock, and the other was called A Life of People, and they were a cappella and sung all the way through. They were amazing. So later on, she collaborated with the director Robert Wilson with The Temptation of St. Anthony, an opera based on The Temptation of St. Anthony.
Yes.
And then I was the musical director, and I wrote all the instrumental arrangements for that. And then we did another piece with him, Zinnia's The Life of Clementine Hunter. So this just started us on our way of knowing like that this was going to be the way we would do a lot of our collaborations. And Parable, through all of that, I would say Parable's been around us since about like 98. And then around 2008, we had an opportunity to present it at the New York City Opera with the late Gerard Mortier, who was going to be the artistic director. And then New York City Opera just started to implode, and that season got wiped out. And they got we only got to do like basically a workshop for 2 or 3 weeks. It was beautiful though. It was amazing. And a lot of the people in that workshop are in the cast today. So we didn't waste time, but it was, it was like, oh, okay, that's not going to work out now. And then I told my mom I would get it done, but I didn't really know how. She retired in 2014. And so she was like, okay, good luck.
She was like, I trust that you will take the lessons forward and get it done.
Yes,
Deuces.
she did.
Yeah,
she
that's
did.
great. Boundaries matter.
Well, and can you talk a little bit about, how you found your cast, your team, like, and I'm imagining that there's been some rotation of players over the course of time that this has been developed even since the workshop. But can you talk a little bit about how you were able to identify the people who needed to be a part of this?
Yeah, I mean, really it's the root of the cast is the community of a community of artists that I already know, and like I said, a lot who were in that initial workshop. But even from that initial workshop, they were people that I already knew, like we had already been working with. And then the family has just grown and grown over the years, and we call it the Parable family. And so once you're in, we don't let you go. So even if you're not in the cast on stage for whatever reason, people get other gigs and they can't do something, or we bring someone else in, and then sometimes we have to hold an audition and we find somebody else, like whatever it takes. But we keep expanding the community of people because we are like in real time with the teachings of the story. So it's yes, it is a theatrical company with the all of the things that you need to set up and sustain that system, but it's people, and it's a really, people come around us and they're like, you guys are so nice, and you take care of each other, and it really is like that. Like, but we don't really know how to do this story and not actually be people in the story. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So that's kept us really together, because our urgency in putting it on the stage also meant that we didn't do like years of rehearsal and years of workshopping and years of fundraising. It was like, no, it's 2017, we have to do it now. So I insisted, like in 2015, that it had to debut in 2017.
One of the other questions we wanted to ask you, Toshi, is a bit about, as a part of this podcast, we've spent some time talking about our creative practices and talking about the work of imagining, the work of imagination as part of like a revolutionary undertaking. that, this idea that we're in an imagination battle and that we're kind of existing in a context that was like imagined by someone else and that we have to imagine our way out of it. So we've done some time talking about our creative practices. We were wondering if you could talk a little bit about your creative practices and in the context of parables, like how has the scale and length of working on a project like this impact you as an artist? How does it impact your creative practice?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. It's doing many things at once. I mean, one is, being close to a parable and reading it so many times. I've read it so many times over the years, but now probably in the last year or two, it's always with me. And I think it's taken on this, like I start talking, like I'm in the book sometimes. And I can't, and I'm always saying, what can we shape? Like, what can we shape in this situation? Like, I'll be like, do we have to do this? Like, what could we shape something else? And people kind of look at me like, what? Huh? What does that mean?
We experience this too, Toshi.
Yes. And I think it also, it definitely has made me think really, really, really more forward as the older I get. Being with the project, the older I get, the more I see myself as being of service to people younger than me and to the dreams of my elders and my ancestors. And the closer I get to being an elder and, eventually an ancestor, as we all must be, the more I kind of have found this really wonderful divine space for myself where I really am seeing these people come through who are so, on that Lauren trajectory, whether they know about parable or not. I mean, so many of my young friends are already in a determination about life and about their paths. And I mean, little people like I meet who are like 8 and 9 and 10 say things to me that let me know that they have come here to do something, and be somebody. And even when they play really well, so
yes.
And they see so many things and they're taking it in, and you gather yourself to protect them, not to keep them from seeing things, but to make sure that they're being 1,000% supported while they're willing to see things. And so parables really also strikes this kind of era of innovation in Black song for me. So much of, when we were writing it, I was looking at Lauren's dad, and I kind of was like, Lauren's dad is a little younger than me now, and he's a Baptist preacher. And so my mother's father, my granddad, was a Baptist preacher. And, and I just tried to imagine his trajectory to, all preachers, whether they sing well or not sing, kind of have a song in their voice. And I tried to imagine his trajectory towards, his voice, his singing voice, and how he would use music to, have a sermon or hold his community, and what Lauren might grow up with, hearing and learning. Some of the scriptures that Octavia has in the book. And then, so that's where this old music from the 19th century, some of these spirits and sacred songs come out of in the play, because we want you to know that as far in the future as Lauren is looking, somebody from the 19th century looked as far at us. And so I don't know if that made sense, what I just said.
Yes, it does.
It does.
Completely
yes.
does.
So we were the spectacular future of our ancestors, us
Yes.
being where we are, us holding the space that we hold. And I kind of see this music still holding a community together. And the conversation between Lauren and her father is Lauren saying, okay, thanks for giving us that, but it's actually not going to work this time. And
not this time.
No.
Yeah.
And like, I'm going to hold it. I know what it is. I can hold it. Look, I even went and got baptized because I love you,
Yes.
but we need actually something else.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that there's practices in it, right? It's like coming together, yes. Like praying together, being together, yes. Working together, caring for each other, yes. But what we're moving towards has to be different.
Yeah, and bigger and wider. And, every time there's a revolution, if you look, each generation takes off a level of normalcy, Like each generation decides to do away with something. So,
Yes.
like if you look at my grandparents in Georgia, my grandfather had 6th grade education. My grandmother had 8th grade education, and they are people who bought land, built a house on the land, had 8 kids, grew food, had their animals, got every single one of their kids an opportunity to go to college if they wanted to. My grandmother washed clothes for somebody, and they negotiated that system to where that land is still in our family today. And and so they navigated, through racism, through segregation. My mother was born in the 40s, so you got to think about them being like in the 30s, and then getting to these points. And then my mother was a part of the civil rights movement. And so she was like, I'm actually not going to navigate within this particular system. I'm not actually going to learn how to do segregation. Like, I'm not going to absorb that part. We're going to remove that. We're going to get rid of that. And so we're going to operate in another place. And then when you get to the 80s, you have like another evolution. Well, this is great that we're going to look at racism and look at segregation and look at these things, but we must have equality for women, and we must look at, lesbians, gays in the 70s. And then that category, it gets limitless now in the 21st century. So every generation takes something away that we don't need anymore and increases the space and the circle and the opportunity of what we're going to talk about and how we're going to do it. And it makes it, you can feel it, hitting the wall of what was there before, and the wall of resistance of what is there before. Like how many conversations I have around, some of my friends around why you can say they. Why do we want to say they? And I was like, I don't know why everybody changed to get African names in the 60s. Like, we didn't have a problem with that. Like, so,
right, exactly.
let's
remember.
An innovation of language. Like, we've been doing this forever. Like, we're Black. We should be the first ones going, they.
Right, exactly.
So,
I love that.
Every generation pushes against the wall that thinks it may have gotten to a certain point that we can live in. And the next generation comes along and says, we can't live here.
Right. It's almost the responsibility of each new generation to see the wall that the other generation can't even see,
Exactly.
And it's interesting thinking about that in relationship to parables, where like how Lauren sees the wall and how her dad sees the wall are very different. Like he sees it as protection, and she sees it as this like false boundary, right? That like
container.
This false container that's like not actually going to assist or support us.
No.
Hello, old friend. Have you heard the news today? The whole world's gone crazy, except for us.
Now we want to take a moment just to listen to another song from the opera because we can. This one is called As I Open My Eyes to See.
Hello, friend. Have you heard the news today? The whole world's gone crazy. Zillions of people moving on the roads trying to find their way. As we gather our hearts and eyes to see, the whole world's gone crazy, except for you and me. What's on the road coming up ahead of us? What's on the road coming up from behind? Yes, it's true. We got proof. We even got solutions, laws and constitutions, lines on the highway, signs and direction. We got that head turned down, loss of affection. We got the rattle of chains, always on our minds. We got crumbling temples and arguments over the divine. We got loss of intentionality, a loss of trust. When we lose our technology, these moving feet will be a must. Can't predict the future, ha, I can in a minute. I've lost my fear and exchanged it for clear vision. As we gather our hearts and eyes to see, the whole world's gone crazy, except for you and me. Something's on the road up ahead of us. What's on the road coming up from behind? What you gonna do when the world's on fire? How you keep moving with your heart hurt and your whole body scarred and tired, carrying all you have on your back, trying to be strategic, figuring out what you got and who will believe it. Action, action, always calling out your name. Don't care if you're ready, don't care if you're in pain. As we gather our hearts and eyes to see, the whole world's gone crazy, except for you and me. As we gather our hearts and eyes to see, the whole world's gone crazy, except for you. Something's on the road ahead of us. What's on the road coming up from behind?
I think that it's so prescient. It makes so much sense for this moment where there are still people who are like, we need to save what is, and we need to build walls around what is. I mean, our country is, really right now we have a president who just called other countries shitholes yesterday. Like we're in this moment of this, we got to protect and save what is. And then so many people being like, we need to be boundless, boundless. Like we need to be able to move beyond that. And that destiny of taking root amongst the stars begins to feel like, oh, right. Like that, it makes sense even for us for right now.
Yeah.
You're so brilliant, Toshi. I just want you to know that like Autumn and I are sitting here doing the symbol of like, you're blowing my mind. Like that.
Yeah, we're silently like shaking our fists and
just having
like
silent church over here. Like, just so you know, the nonverbal communication is all affirmation over here. So I have another question, and then I think we should wrap up because we could go on forever and ever, literally. So you talked a little bit about this, like you feel like your call right now is to be of service, and that you really want to be in right relationship with your ancestors. And so I want to talk a little bit now, circling back into Octavia and your relationship with her now. As you're doing this work, as you are, on the stage, performing this show and being with others performing this show, do you feel Octavia with you, like on a spiritual level, or however you might describe it? Like, do you feel her moving through you? What is your relationship to her like in this moment?
Well, I mean, from meeting her, I would have to say I don't, and not because she isn't there. She could be or she couldn't be. I don't know. She was not a mushy person, and she didn't, she didn't extend out like an energetic field that would be familiar to most of us. She didn't do the things that, we all kind of see as somebody sharing energy or, sharing light, or, when I'm around this person, I feel so, open and available, and that's not what she ever did with me. And I think she had a very, close circle of people, and they can probably tell you more than I could ever. But I think her work, her words on a page and her stories, and hearing her talk about, hearing how she thought about things is really, really, really with me. I mean, she just, like, the thing I keep saying is about prediction, like, she was just like, it's really easy. Like, and I think we all make everything so complicated about looking forward. And I think I never forget that it's actually easy to say what's going to happen. It's like you just start somewhere and you have enough information. You don't need a computer, and you can really, say, like, here's the future based on the now. And I think that, like the last time I heard her speak, somebody asked her something about Katrina, and she was just like, look, this is not a surprise. Everybody knows, blah, 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 blah. The government knows, that this person knows, everybody knows, and so she really was aware of, people also are like, she predicted this president, and I'm like, she predicted us. She predicted us letting this man be the president. She really understood humans, and she really understood our inability to actually trust our instincts and make bold decisions when we had to, and to stay on a path, even if the path didn't reward us. And, nothing spells that out like our elections, we want to be, our votes are like, it's like as if we think they're like money or pockets of gold that we give to the universe, and therefore we hold them in this, unbelievably sacred place. And it's a little bit like insane. Like, I just am like, why are we dealing with this? Like, this should be a very simple thing. Like, yes, you do vote for the lesser of two evils. Yes, you do, run for office at local levels instead of obsessing about the presidency every, 2.5 years. Yes, you do work with people you don't like and you disagree with. You have to. Do. And if you don't, you get tyrants with power to make huge decisions over your life. So we nothing says it like more than that. Like, you don't even have to agree on so many things. You could just be, we're not going to let somebody who's going to kill us, run the country.
Yeah.
And
just basic shit.
Our desperateness shows when we see someone powerful like Oprah, deliver a speech that, was a great speech for a great moment to a really particular group of people trying to, make some change in their industry, and have it also affect other people, and knowing the value of when someone goes on television and you get to witness them from a faraway place, how it can give you some hope, And I know that because I remember seeing the Jackson 5 on TV, and I was like, I'm going to do that. So I'm not, all of us need to stop hating around the celebrities trying to be powerful thing. But, to be like, and now she's going to run for office. And then you just see today, if you go to any social media and you look at any articles, we're having the same kind of conversation. Well, she doesn't have my vote, and,
Right.
people are
She
posting
needs to
today.
earn it.
Yeah, pictures of her with Donald Trump. And, and
No,
we
it's
basically,
insane.
like, we didn't learn anything from the last election. Like, the
Right.
last election shows you that it's not a joke and it's not a game, and that we need to become almost business minded about how we're going to participate as citizens in electing leadership in this country, and that it is not something that needs to be media driven. It needs to be locally driven. It needs to be driven by our indigenous thinking, and then it will lead you to a president that would be worth serving you. But you can't go
Absolutely.
top down. And so I never, that never leaves me, because in the book there are elections, and there are government officials, and all of the infrastructure that we have now is still in place. So it's not
Right.
like the whole world crumbled. It's that
Right. Right.
a huge part of it is just in the service of these very few horrible, horrendous systems that don't care if you live or you die, and what your living is like. And so that is with me, 1,000% all the time. I just every day am in that zone.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you so much, actually, because I feel like I remember during the election you using all of your platforms in order to try to inject some reasoning into how people were looking at the election, and inject some complexity, that it's like you have to be able to hold. I mean, there's the simple piece of just like, we're living here now, we need to be able to do the right actions in this moment, even as we move towards a larger vision. But there's also a level of complexity to that people need to be able to see both now and long term, and to be, keeping your eyes on, like, there is a prize, but we have to be alive to get there.
Yeah.
So how do we take care of that immediate need? So I just want to thank you, because I feel like you have been, both as an artist, as a human being, as a parent, in all these different ways, continuously being one of those voices of reason, even as you do this massive magical work that lifts our eyes towards something even larger than ourselves, and something that connects us to everyone else, and then taking it global right away. Just feels like it's such a brilliant move.
Yeah, it was.
So yeah,
I just want to say, like, what is humbling to me is when I consider myself a person of great wealth. Like, I live in a home, and I have amazing community and friends, and if something happens to you and you can pick up a phone and you could call like 20 people, like, you're wealthy. And
yes,
and you are you're in a really good place. And I think one of the things that a lot of us who are operating in that zone of having community, having shelter, having jobs, having money in a bank account, not zillions of dollars, but like, you can afford to eat tomorrow. We can be leaders, and we can carry the load of people who are doing other work as we're doing our progress. Like, I was like, everybody, over 40 vote. And like, if the kids don't want to vote because they're doing something else that will be helpful for us, we should be able to carry them not having a leader who will kill them while they try to do it.
yes,
And,
yeah.
that was one of the saddest, that was one of the parts for me. Like, we just won't get strategic with this. And not that anybody liked voting for whoever was there, but that you are going to use a strategy to ensure our forward moving. And if young people don't want to vote because they're like, we're actually tearing the system down, then we should cover them.
Flank.
We should cover them.
Absolutely.
That
And
is such deep wisdom, Toshi. That is such deep wisdom.
yeah, and I think this one more thing is about the current person in the White House. We all need to take a measure of what he said, but we need to take a measure of it. He talked about a continent of people and a country, and he talked about Black people on the planet. But we all need to think about, like, how we are thinking about those places in the world. and why they think that they actually can use those places as a testing ground for how far they can go with our country. And all of us, you know, I only went to Africa for the first time last year. I went to South Africa. I went to Haiti many years, like in the 90s, which I've never forgotten. But we all can like actually take some measure of what they're really saying. You know, this is about the obliteration of Black and brown people on the planet. And this is a coordinated attack on us. And he is not the only one in a leadership position with powerful weapons thinking like this. And so as we like sit here on our outrage on social media and outrage and listening to all of the people, again, strategically, what is going to be our community move to reject 1,000%? How are we going to ever make them pay for the things that they are saying about our people and for the intention that they have to destroy us? That is all this is. All of those people stood around him and didn't say anything except for, yep, that's how we feel. And that has just got to be the hugest, like, you know, call for the war that they're activating on us. And we should take it very seriously. Everybody, if you post somebody, you need to make sure 2018 that those people see you somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is super important. Like, just to, you know, put a fine point on it, it's like, I feel like you've said this before, but understanding when it is time for action, like when it is time to move out of the digital realm, like it's like, this is a great place to be doing conversation and deepening an analysis. But then at a certain point, we have to be willing to say, we stop participating in the system and we stop this from moving forward. And what does that actually look like? And I feel like to me, this is actually one of the great exciting moments for why the parables are so relevant right now. It's just like, it's 2 steps from that, you know, we're 2 steps from that reality. Like it's not far. And I think we have, you know, as long as we allow ourselves to operate as if it's far, we won't take right action. We won't feel the urgency. And there's so much in place to keep us from feeling urgency. So I really appreciate the sort of clarion call inside of what you're saying of like, now is the time to act. Last year was the time to act. The year before that was the time to act.
Yeah, Parable of the Talents.
You know?
Parable of the Talents, they say 2014, I think, is the 14 or 14, right? That's when we kind of let it go and said, well, this is the way they think about us. So all of our gathering and all of the work that we're doing really, really, really matters. And you two are awesome. I really appreciate talking to you.
You are amazing, and we are so grateful. Like this, I feel like this conversation. You couldn't see me, Toshi, but at multiple points I cried. Like I'm so grateful for your wisdom. I'm so grateful that you took the time out of this weekend to speak to us, and we are just so every day inspired by what you're manifesting in the world. And our work, you know, our work is we're all touching each other right now. And that's, I think, the feeling that we need to be in, right? That we need to feel ourselves, the energy of our work touching each other. So thank you so much for just your brilliance, just deep appreciation and bows.
We love you.
Love you too. You guys have a great night.
We want to deeply thank Toshi Reagon for joining us today. We wanted you all to get a little taste of how incredible this opera is. If you want to learn more about it, find out ways to bring it to where you are, you can go to parableopera.com.
There's a new world coming.
Lauren.
There's a new world coming.
Lauren, stop.
There's a new world coming. Everything gonna be turning over. Everything gonna be turning over. Where you gonna be standing when it comes? There's a new world coming. Everything gonna be turning over. Everything gonna be turning over. Where you gonna be standing when it comes? Don't you ever wonder what's gonna happen to us? Living get ready to go. We'll be hit, and then a big hit will come. It will be just like Jericho. There's a new world coming. Everything gon' be turning over. Everything gon' be turning over. Where you gon' be standing when it
Lawrence, stop. You're scaring people. You can't predict the future. No one can. Do you really think the world's gonna end? Do you really think the world's gonna end? You know the book, the Bible. You'll read it and you'll see. It will surely come to pass, and this is how it's gonna be.
This is how it's gonna be.
Then that a meek and humble will come and gain the earth. Them that shudder at the bottom will rise and rule the world.
There's a new world coming. Everything gon' be turning over. Everything gon' be turning over. Where you gon' be standing? 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 When it comes.
We have credits. We have very standard credits. Thanks for listening to our show. We are on Twitter and Instagram at End of the World PC. We're also on Facebook at End of the World Show.
You can also make a sustaining donation to our show by visiting our page at patreon.com/endoftheworldshow.
It is really true that another thing that's really helpful that you can do to help us sustain the show is to write a review on Apple Podcasts if you're an iPhone person. Thank you for doing that.
And How to Survive the End of the World is produced and edited by the incomparable and beloved Zach Rosen.
Music for today's show comes from Blue Dot Sessions. Thanks for listening. All right, let's stop recording.
I love you.